Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to talk to you guys about what I think are the top 10 best mains for you in this upcoming winter patch and even going into 2026. So if you were to pick any of these 10 characters, you probably will have a very good time on the game. Each one of them has things about them that makes them very good or strong or OP or has some sort of game-breaking mechanic to them that cannot be overlooked. Obviously, MapleStory has a lot of classes. Let's see what class I land on. Dark Knight. Okay, at least it was an explorer. Like I said, obviously MapleStory has a lot of classes and narrowing it down to the top 10 is a little bit difficult, but I think these picks are going to be really good for anybody, and no matter which one of these you pick, I think you will have a very OP time in the game. What I mean by that is you're probably not going to struggle as much as somebody who is playing something, let's say, extremely difficult to play, or somebody that is playing something extremely weak. I do want to stress before we get into this top 10 that you can and should play anything that you want. Every single class in this game will be fine if you want to main it, and you won't have any issues with it. Yes, that means every single class, including Hydo, which I even said is the worst class in the game right now. At the end of the day, even if you wanted to pick it, you could still progress and have a great time playing this game. So I wanted to make that absolutely clear. If you don't see your class in the top 10, it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's unplayable. It just means that these top 10 are so OP in my opinion that they just deserve their own highlight. And the last thing I want to say is this is not based on strictly damage. So if you come at me with actually this class is not here on the DPS chart, shut up, I don't want to hear it. There's much more to this game than damage, and you'd be a fool if you think damage is everything, because it changes from patch to patch. With that all being said though, if you learned something from this video or you appreciate this video, please consider subscribing. I have a goal of reaching 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I know we can do it, but so I have to ask you guys to subscribe. It would be so helpful and it would mean so much to me. Also, come to the live stream where I will be streaming this game. You can get as much help as you need there. There's a huge community that you could join, and of course also join the Discord for the same reasons. Anyways, let's get right into it. In the number 10 slot, I want to talk about Arc, which is my current main on Chronos. The reason why I put Arc over here at number 10 is a mix of the class having a lot of damage and a pretty good future moving forward with upcoming patches, and it also has some support, a little bit of support that makes it still useful in a party, which for me, I value that a lot when you're picking a main. If you have something that you can add to the party besides just damage. The thing about MapleStory that you have to realize is every single class needs to have damage to kill the bosses. This is not an MMO like other games where you have a DPS class, you have a tank, and you have a support. Every single character in this game is a DPS. All of them, no exceptions. Every single class needs to be a DPS because you end up soloing a lot of bosses. But some classes have support that they also give to their party along with that DPS. And Arc, because it has a little bit of support, I think will always just be inherently a little bit better than a standard DPS class. And because Arc is pretty strong and in my opinion has very fun gameplay, very easy to train with as well. And by easy to train with, I mean it's very easy to one-shot with, which is actually very valuable. I'm going to put it at number 10. So to go over very quickly what type of support it offers, basically Arc is a combo class, and as you do your combos, you can essentially get a buff. It's very simple. I don't want to get too into details, but you'll get a buff that gives you boss damage, gives you IED, it gives you attack speed, gives you avoidability, gives you attack power, gives you crit rate, and these buffs can be shared with your party members with this skill over here called Charge Spell Amplifier. In total, you are giving your party a bunch of stats. Crit rate is actually a really underrated stat to give your party, especially if you have archers, because they have a skill that converts some of their crit rate into crit damage. So it's almost like you're giving certain classes crit damage. Now you might think that Arc is this hyper burst class that just feels like shit when you're not in Spectre mode anymore or anything like that. That's how it used to be. That's not how it is anymore, and it's not how it's going to be even more so in the future. Arc's DPS is actually getting better and better and better, and obviously it still has that very satisfying burst. So basically what Arc gameplay looks like is you obviously have your gauge and you have the combo, right? And you transform and some of your skills change, and you're going to have to be comboing these skills, and then you're going to have to upkeep your buffs. Now I wanted to show you guys a little bit of Arc burst as well, just to give you sort of a visual, because what if this is your first time watching the class? You can see the Arc is very well animated. If you don't like the red and black, then you're probably not going to like Arc, to be honest with you, just because that's just the main thing about Arc. And you're going to cycle in and out of your transformation. The longer you're in your transformation, the less age you have. So I'm going to show you what like an Arc burst looks like. Basically, you put down your burst, pop your buffs, hold your key down, use your knives, and then use your origin. Now, I think Arc's Origin is one of the coolest ones in the game. To be honest with you, I just think it's super sick. Like, the demon consumes you, and then you could use your knives again, and then you could use your second part of your burst, which is like a skill that gives you like a traumatic flashback, basically. Anyways, this isn't like a super in-depth guide on every single class. I just want to tell you why I think every one of these classes is top 10. So let's move on to number 9. So number 9 is Motion, and the first thing that I have to get out of the way is that this class is not in the Korean server. If you don't know, the Korean server is the base game of MapleStory, and because it is the base game of MapleStory, it has the most developmental support out of every single region. So historically, and even continuing on to this day, every single one of these classes that is a not Korean base game class generally has more bugs and less support. Now, to be fair, they have been better nowadays than they used to be. Sometimes bugs would last like years back in the day. They're a little faster nowadays, but I wanted to mention that just so you guys know, is that if you are playing one of these non-Korean classes, it is inherently a little bit riskier, but I still want to talk about Motion anyways, because I think the class is so good and it would take a lot for it to not be good, honestly. Just at a baseline, the class is super duper strong, right? And obviously being strong is better than not being strong, but it wouldn't be in this top 10 list if it didn't have something more than just its damage. Motion has a little bit of party support with this skill here called Divine Fist Disciples. Basically what it does is it gives your party crit damage, which is a pretty useful stat, obviously giving your party crit damage. So it just has that little extra bit of support that makes it superior than just a class that is regular DPS, and it also pumps as well. Motion is a blue and black aesthetic class, kind of like ink based. It's a martial artist class that honestly I think is very, very sick looking and one of the better animated classes in the game. A lot of people say that this class is like really hard to play, but honestly I don't think that's that important, because not only is it not actually that super hard to play, if it's going to be your main, you're going to take time to learn it regardless, right? It also has extremely lazy training. I just want to point that out. Like, Motion is very easy to one-shot with, and it's very lazy to train with as well, so it makes it a very, very good main. But the thing that really puts Motion above many other classes in this game is that it has crit bind. Basically what that means is you can extend the duration of a boss being bound, and that is one of the most broken things you could do on this game, period, is extending the duration of a bind, because that means every single person in your party and you can do infinitely more damage and also not die. So it just makes the boss turn into a dummy, and I'll show you what that looks like. So for example, I'm just gonna regular bind the boss here, right? So he's just regularly bound, and you can see in the top left over here, he can't move, he's bound or whatever, right? But then you have this skill over here called Righteous Thunder. So when I use Righteous Thunder, you can see that he's bound again for a few seconds. And this obviously stacks with regular bind, stacks with origin bind, and just those extra few seconds of an extra bind is really nice. And because this only has a 45-second cooldown, that means you can get at least 2 uses of it every bind rotation. So it just helps. Like, something as small as that is actually really broken on this game. You might not realize it. That's why I think Motion's number 9, but let's move on to number 8. Number 8 is a class that we all love, Demon Slayer. Now, I just want to mention that no matter what you hear about Demon Slayer, the Demon Slayers might have the biggest propaganda campaign on all of MapleStory. Straight up. If you were to ask a Demon Slayer player about their class, they will downplay it to the ground. Let me assure you that this is still one of the most broken classes in the entire game, by virtue of TP farming alone. So first of all, let's talk about TP farming. If you don't know what TP farming is on Demon Slayer, basically what it allows you to do is allows you to kill the entire map and automatically loot the map while holding down one button. That is all you have to do. That is not an exaggeration. And most people who do TP farm, they're not actually holding down one button. They're using either a remote controller to just automatically do it, or they're using a foot pedal that they just hold down the entire day, and you just hold down that button for 20-minute increments until the rune spawns, take the rune, and then cycle and repeat. So many Demon Slayers are over level 290 because of this, and literally only because of this. Demon Slayer is one of those classes that raises the ceiling for the average player because you can TP farm. Every other farming method on this game is not as good as TP farming, motion farming, Lara river farming, Corsair summons, Janus balls. None of it is as good as TP farming because TP farming allows you to loot while you kill the whole map. A lot of people love to say, oh, but this class can also lazy farm. A lot of classes can lazy farm, but they can't also loot as they lazy farm. Demon Slayer is the only class that can loot as they kill the entire map at the whole time, which creates a infinite farming loop that you could just do the whole day, every single day. I have friends that are level 290, 285 plus on multiple Demon Slayers just because that's how OP TP farming is, right? So just because of TP farming alone, just because of how OP the farming is, it's a top 10 class automatically just because of that. Doesn't even matter if the class is weak. Now let's talk about the class's damage. Is the class weak? No, it's not. Don't get gaslit. It's not weak. It's not weak either. Even though Demon Awakening has been nerfed basically from what it used to be, it's not actually still a weak class or trash or anything like that. Like, don't get gaslit at all. I also want to mention that Demon Slayer, this is what honestly holds it back. If you were to make a honest argument about Demon Slayer, this would be the argument, is you would need this item called the Ruined Force Shield. And by need, I say that word loosely. You need it when you want to get to end game, but in your typical progression, you're not going to need it. Like, the regular Princess No Shield will be more than fine enough for a very long time. Demon Slayer has one of the best kits in the game, like I mentioned earlier. What that means is it has an insane loadout. So you have gliding, which is very, very, very strong. You might think that flash jump is superior, but when it comes to bossing, gliding is infinitely better. And it also has insane base stats. So what that means is, like, you have a ton of IED, you have a bunch of boss damage, you have a bunch of crit rate. So when you are early into the game, you're not going to be as starved for these resources on Demon Slayer. It also has bonus drop rate that is pretty unique to the class as well because of Demon Cry, which means that you're more likely to get good drops on this class just by a little bit. It has healing, lifesteal, insane iframe, so it has crazy survivability as well via Dark Metamorphosis. This whole animation is an iframe. You could use it midair. Same with Ravenstorm. Also another iframe. Your burst is an iframe as well. Demon Bane, like this entire sequence, you are iframed throughout your burst. Like, there you go. Now the iframe ended. Now, like I mentioned before with the other classes, what gives Demon Slayer the advantage is primarily TP farming. It is so insanely OP that it has to be a top 10 class, but also its kit is just so good. So regardless of whether it's super OP in the meta or it's mid or it's weak, its kit is always going to be so good. So it's always going to have a good time clearing bosses. You're not going to really be struggling. Like, for example, some classes like Xenon, just to give you an example, if they're really strong, it's good because they're really strong. But if they're not that strong, then the class is so horrible because the class feels like shit to play, in my opinion. Whereas Demon Slayer never feels like shit to play, also in my opinion, because the kit is just so good. In terms of party support, you don't really offer much other than just a little bit of IED and the drop rate. At number 7, this might be a little bit of a weird pick, but Dawn Warrior. Now, you might have heard somewhat recently that Dawn Warrior is bad, it got nerfed a lot or whatever, but it actually quite recently got buffed a lot as well and has become really good. The strengths that Dawn Warrior offers is that it is extremely simple to play and has good survivability as well. So if you are somebody who's looking for a new main or you're looking for an easy time progressing, Dawn Warrior is an excellent pick for you. It also has one of the strongest mobbing in the game, meaning it's super easy to one-shot with. Dawn Warrior also offers support. Like every other class, there needs to be something that gives it more than just a strong DPS class, right? And Dawn Warrior still offers some support in the game through their True Sight, which gives you final damage and IED for everybody in the party. Not only will it fill that DPS slot in the party that just kills the boss, right? It also gives everybody final damage. So it's just that little bonus that helps out a lot as well. Dawn Warrior also is very beautifully animated, which I think is important when you play this game. I don't know if I'm the only one that cares about this, but I feel like if a class is ugly, like, it just makes me not want to play it, like, straight up, even if the class is OP. Whereas Dawn Warrior is very, very well animated. It has a space theme, yellow and purple, basically. I would definitely recommend this class again going into 2026. It wasn't good for like the last year or so, but now it's really good again. Next up is Ilium. Now, Ilium is one of those classes that has been dog shit for so many years, but is now one of the most broken classes in the game. So let's just get it right off rip. Is it strong? Yes, it's very, very strong. And as you can see on the screen here, Ilium has a game-breaking gameplay that is very unique to it, that allows it to fly and teleport and dash around the map in a way that no other class can, which makes its survivability and gameplay completely different than every other class. And honestly, the game isn't really even designed around Ilium, so you could just get away with a lot of nonsense just because you're playing this class. Now, you might think, oh, Ilium's a little bit annoying to charge the ball or whatever. No, you don't have to do any of that. They made the class super simple to play. The ball automatically charges. It's very, very, very strong. It's got good burst as well. And of course, it has party support because obviously that's very important. You can offer your entire party a huge 10-second iframe, which is almost like the boss being bound an additional 10 seconds on top of the regular binds. So imagine you bind the boss, then you origin bind the boss, then you use your Genesis iframe, which is 10 seconds, then you use the Ilium iframe, which is another 10 seconds. It's like for almost a whole minute straight, the whole party is just immune every 2 minutes. So you're basically invincible almost 50% of the time. Well, actually, that's only on the origin, but you get what I'm saying. You're invincible a lot of the time when you have an Ilium in your party. And did I mention the class has game-breaking mechanics? Like, I just want to keep mentioning that. Like, look at this. Like, it's literally like a fly flying around and you're trying to like hit the fly and the fly just keeps dodging you. That's what Ilium is. People say it's like a flying cockroach, basically. But the class is insanely OP. Like, I would definitely recommend it, whether you're new or you want to be endgame or whatever. It's a very highly recommended class, without a doubt. And now for number 5, I want to talk to you about Paladin. This top 5 might be a little bit weird to hear, but Paladin is actually one of the most broken classes in the game. So, of course, the class is obviously very strong and is most likely going to continue to be strong even into 2026 because upcoming patches in Korea clearly show that the class is still very strong. But what makes Paladin different than other classes? Why is it, in my opinion, top 5 worthy, one of the best mains in the whole game? So first of all, Paladin is very hard to die on. So if you are a new player, Paladin is super new player friendly because you can just ignore a lot of patterns just because you won't die. So for example, you have skills like Divine Shield and other skills over here that literally just give you like damage reduction or like a chance to straight up block damage. So that way you just like don't die. Paladin also has insanely strong support that scales super well into the end game. So as you get further and further into the game, the support scales better and better. The reason why that's the case is bosses on this game, the further that you get, like I'm talking past Vihila, past Arcanel and stuff like that, the parties get smaller and smaller. So for example, in Kaling, in phase 1, there's only one party member with you. In Limbo, there's only a party of 3. Baldrix, there's only a party of 3. And then in First Adversary, a boss that's coming out in the future, it's only a party of 3. So the value of Paladin increases because of the way that Paladin support works. Paladin has a skill here called Divine Echo, and basically what it does is it gives Paladin a shit ton of damage, but it also gives your partner a lot of damage as well. In particular, it gives your party member 15% final damage, and 15% final damage is a huge amount of damage for somebody. And if you don't know, final damage scales multiplicatively on this game. So you're actually gaining more than 15% more damage because it stacks multiplicatively with all of your other sources of final damage on your characters as well. It also makes Paladin itself do more damage. Now you might think like, okay, well, the problem with Paladin is if I don't have a partner, I'm going to do no damage. Now that's actually not the case anymore. That used to be the case, but it's not the case anymore. As a matter of fact, Paladin's self damage is insanely high. Like it's far above average and is considered a very, very strong class at the moment. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, your own self damage and you need a partner to do anything. That's just not true. Another thing that Paladin offers is Sacrosanctity, which long story short just makes you invincible and it makes your party invincible as well. And this iframe lasts an extremely long time. You can also like cancel it and then you get a refund as well. You also offer real combat orders, which is a actually underrated support buff because sometimes this gives your party members straight up final damage. Now, if you don't know what combat orders does, basically what it does is it makes your 4th job skills all +2 levels. So you know how like when you level your skills, the skills become stronger? Well, it adds 2 additional levels, which is actually really, really strong because sometimes you have passives that give you a ton of damage. Like look at this passive over here, High Paladin. Crit rate, crit damage, ID, and final damage, and even more crit damage, right? If you were to give this to your whole party, a lot of classes have passives like this that just give them final damage. So you'll be giving somebody maybe 2% final damage, 3% final damage, 4% final damage. Like it's actually very, very powerful. It's very underrated. You could also just heal your party too. I just want to point that out. You could just like straight up heal them. Next up, we got to talk about the newest class that is about to be added to the game, Ren. It is one of the most beautifully animated classes out there, period. And honestly, just by virtue of that alone, it's probably worth playing because you don't want to miss out on playing a class that is this smooth and this well animated. Now, let's talk about why Ren is number 4. The reason why Ren is number 4 is because specifically in this upcoming winter patch, it is one of the best mains to pick, period, because it has its own event. And because it has its own event, it means that it gets a lot of resources for Ren only. Part of the challenge of playing MapleStory, and the reason why you even want to pick a good main, is because MapleStory can be complicated. It can be a little hard to progress if you don't know what you're doing. But playing something like Ren, when there's an event that is for her, makes all of that easier because you get bonus stuff, which means you can fun faster, you can progress through the game faster, you can learn the game faster because she herself has a very simple kit. Because she has a very simple kit, it means that you are more likely to actually get all of your damage out. Like, for example, we know that Cadena is very strong and it's stronger than Ren, but Cadena is harder to play. So in reality, you might actually do more damage on Ren because she's very easy to play. She has very, very high uptime. Ren herself, the reason why I can't put her higher than this is because Ren herself doesn't offer anything special like all the other classes does. She is a just strictly raw DPS class, which means that her entire value just comes from her damage. Like in terms of progression, her value comes from her damage. So if she's not extremely strong, then she's just going to be inferior than somebody who is strong and offers support, right? But because Ren has her own event, it's so high value to play her, and she's one of the best mains at the moment. Now, Ren actually gets buffed more and more and more after every single patch following this one. Like, her weakest state ever is release, and then she gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So as you keep playing her, your future is going to be brighter and brighter, basically. So I think that's also very valuable to mention. Her kit includes damage reduction and lifesteal, dashes, and a hurricane, which means that you can permanently attack and move at the same time. She's also very easy to train with. It's easy to one-shot with her as well. So that's why I have her at number 4. Number 3 is Zero. And honestly, at this point in the video, I want to mention you could just play anything in these top 10. They'll all be okay. And you can swap around, in particular, the top 3 in any order that you want. And they're all just so insanely OP that it doesn't really matter where you rank them. They're all just so insanely OP. I said at the start of this year that Zero is the best class in the whole game, and it'll continue to be the best class in 2025. And honestly, that take did age well, because you can argue that it's either the literal number 1 best class, but you can't argue that it's not at least top 3 best class. Now, what makes Zero so good is the crit bind, in my opinion. That's like the main thing that makes Zero so good. If you remember earlier when I talked about Moshen's crit bind, Zero has the same thing, but 100 times better, where the boss is almost like bound like 50% of the time straight up just from Zero's crit binds. Like, look at the gameplay right here. Damien was just knocked out of the air because of Zero's crit bind. This makes it so that everybody in your party, Zero as well, just does infinitely more damage because the boss can't attack. The boss can't do anything. The boss just becomes a dummy. And that is just the crit bind aspect of Zero. Zero itself does so much damage. Like, Zero is extremely strong. Very good burst, very good DPS, and is also an unkillable class. Insane movement, insane survivability, shields, iframes, everything. 2 HP bars, whatever you want. Like, Zero literally has everything. Some people might even say that Zero is the only class in the whole game that can truly get out of every single situation that the game can put you in, no matter what it is. It's insane. Having a Zero on your party also gives you your party members like 50 IED. I just want to point that out. Having a Zero on your party gives you an unquantifiable amount of bonus damage. Like, that's how much it is. Other classes, for example, like Dawn Warrior, it's like, okay, you get 5% final damage. From True Sight, it's like a number, right? But Zero's crit bind is just potentially infinite value for your party. Like, it is truly so insanely broken. The only bad thing I guess you could say about Zero is that it can be a little hard to play if you don't know what you're doing. But again, if this is your main, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to learn it, so it's not a big deal. All right, now let's talk about number 2, Lyn. Lyn is one of the most broken classes in the game. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't really matter what order you put these classes in. You can argue one is better than the other. Lyn is insanely OP because it offers the strongest support in the entire game, which is this skill over here called Awaken. Awaken gives your party member a massive amount of final damage. Long story short, if you don't know what that means, that basically means you can essentially double your party member's damage. Like, that's what Lin does, is you can choose one party member on your team and you can basically just double their damage every 2 minutes for 20 seconds. This skill is also supposed to have a 1 minute cooldown, so it's supposed to be even more frequent than that, which I think is just like the craziest shit ever. Like, you could just like boop, double your damage. Like, okay, that's like so broken. Now that alone would already make the class super OP, and you must think like, oh, surely because it has such a strong support, that means its own self damage must not be good. But if you're watching the video, then you remember what I was saying. Every single class on this game is a DPS class. Some classes just have DPS and more. This is the and more class. This class's damage is one of the strongest in the entire game at the moment, straight up. But it would be irresponsible of me not to mention that this is a non-KMS class, which means it's not part of the Korean base game, and it is highly more likely to be bugged more often than all of the classes that are in the Korean server, which means that although this class is extremely OP right now and has been extremely OP pretty much since release, it might not always stay like that. It could literally just be one patch where this skill just straight up doesn't even work or something, and then that's it. It's just like a raw DPS class, which would still be good. Or maybe it just doesn't get as many balancing updates as other classes. Anything could happen with these non-Korean classes. I'm not trying to say this as like a doomer or to scare you or anything like that. It's just that this is the reality. Like, this is the reality of non-Korean classes, is they're more likely to be bugged than all the other classes. But I'm a pretty optimistic guy, and I think that a true like super game-breaking bug that makes the class useless, I don't think that's gonna really happen. Fingers crossed though. So we talked about Lin's self-damage and we talked about Lin's support in terms of final damage. Lin offers actually way more support than that too. You offer your party a fat-ass shield. You offer your party pretty much infinite healing. You offer your party immediate 100% heal and continual healing after that. You also offer your party status resist purification, so they can't be stunned or anything like that. You also offer your party anti one-shot. If they just stand in here, they just won't get one-shotted. You also have a cool gimmick where you can teleport your entire party members to you, and you could teleport yourself to your party member, which means that let's say somebody's in a bad spot, everybody can just instantly go to you if you're in a good spot. So if you're a really good Lin player, then you would teleport everybody to you and you would save everybody. So this is actually a class that has pretty unique gameplay and is honestly game breaking. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, a lot of these classes are kind of game breaking. It also has insane movement, insane survivability, and just like all that type of stuff, you know what I mean? All that good stuff that you can expect out of like an OP class. And I want to point out that Lin, you might think the drawback of it is that it has no burst, right? Because this is a very DPS oriented class, and you might think like, oh well, it has no burst, so you should probably mention that. Well, actually somewhat recently, I don't have the 6th job unlocked, but with their Mastery 3, which I think is their bird, it actually uses Ring of Restraint now, because the bird does so much freaking damage that it's like a burst. Like, that's how much damage it does. So the class does have burst and does have good DPS, which is insane. Now moving on to number 1, I'm going to talk about Bishop. It wouldn't be a Duky class related video without talking about Bishop, just because this class is so OP. Now, to be fair, Bishop is not as OP as it used to be, but the reason why I have it at number 1 is because I think this is truly just the safest, most valuable character to have on your account, regardless of what happens in the game. There has not been a single point in this entire game's history where Bishop was not either OP or at least extremely useful. Like I said earlier as well, it doesn't really matter where you rank these classes, right? Sure, you could say Bishop's not number 1, number 2, or whatever, but you probably can't argue that Bishop is not a top 10 class, or at least one of the best classes in the game, just because it offers so much. Now, I'm sure you know Bishop is like the go-to support class, but like I keep mentioning in this video, there's no such thing as just a support. This game, every single character is a DPS, right? You always have to remember that, and that includes Bishop. And Bishop herself has a lot of damage just in their own kit, and you can also buff up your entire party through the class's support. Now, just to name some of the support that the class has, obviously you can give your party extra lives, you can heal your party, you give your party a ton of damage, you can place down a real fountain that they could use to heal as well. You have anti-status resist, you have damage reduction with Holy Magic Shell, and you have on your 5th job Benediction that gives your party a ton of final damage, IED, and a lot of good stuff. So long story short, you just give your party a ton of damage and you make them unkillable. Like that's the gist of it, is you give your party a ton of damage and you make them unkillable. So you might think like, oh, the downside of Bishop is like, well, you have to charge Infinity, and if you don't have a lot of buff duration, then Infinity is bad. Well, actually, this is being turned into a passive skill in a future patch that's coming soon, and you don't have to worry about that at all, and it becomes extremely brain dead. Bishop's already brain dead, but it's going to become even more brain dead. It also has teleport, which I don't think I've mentioned until now, but teleport is insanely OP on this game. It wouldn't be far-fetched to say that teleport is almost like a instant iframe, because you could just go through something, whereas a different class would have to iframe through it. Like, let's say a projectile is coming towards me, right? Like Darknell's arrow or something, and I can't move, or it's really hard for me to move, I can't up jump or whatever. I could just teleport through it, and then I'm through it, whereas another class might have to actually use their iframe in that scenario. Teleport is super strong on this game, and I think Bishop is just truly the safest, most genuine recommended main that you could have. Every other class, maybe except Zero, honestly, you could make an argument of like, well, maybe this makes it not that safe to main. Like, well, you know, what if Arc gets like really nerfed? Like, I get that it has a little bit of support, but at the end of the day, like, if it's really weak, it's going to be bad, right? Whereas Bishop, like, you can't really make that argument because it has like 20 years of data that just prove that it's always been OP. Bishop is actually used as the metric on this game in terms of damage. Like, how everybody actually calculates damage on this game is it's relative to Bishop. And the reason why people do that is because if you are doing less damage than Bishop, then you are suboptimal. You are not as good to have in a party than just having another Bishop. Like, let's say you're playing a weak class like Heido, for example, right? Heido is significantly worse than Bishop. So even if the party already had Bishop, you would just have another Bishop in the party, and it would just offer infinitely more than Heido. So everything is relative to Bishop. Like, the game is basically based off of this class. It defines the meta. It defines what's strong and what's not strong. Because if you're weaker than Bishop, like I mentioned, just put another Bishop in your party and you're stronger as a party. Anyways, let me know what you think of this top 10 video. If there's any class that you think deserves to be here, definitely leave a comment down below. I want to challenge you and hear what you have to say other than just a class being strong. Like, for example, let's say you say, oh, Cadena should be there because it's strong. Well, what else? Like, is it just strong? What about other things about the class, right? Definitely leave a comment down below on what you think should be like a top 10 best main. What would you recommend to your friends who might be starting to play this game? What do you think of my list? I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. And of course, definitely be sure to subscribe. I put a lot of effort into the YouTube and into the Twitch and stuff like that, and it helps me out so much. Really want to hit 40k subs by the end of this year. I would really appreciate that. If you watched until the end of the video, I want you to say the name of the class that we're about to land on. Thunderbreaker. So drop a Thunderbreaker or a TB in comments so I know you watched the entire video. Appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Look forward to much more, and I'll see you in the next one. Shout out to my beautiful members: Blazefire, Shooms, Shagad, Ravi Espa, Koga, Skittles, CKJ, Vampiric X, Fresh and Juicy, Kelvin, Cloud Figs, Trashbot, Henzo, Dylan, Cloudy Quesos, Jason B, Sylvester L, JA, Russell M, Mochi Teddy, Zero Sama, Shredbot, Michael R, and Suna TM. I appreciate you guys so much. If you guys ever want to submit art, put it in the Discord fan art channel, and I'll see you for the next video.